My name is Emily Harlow. I'm 35 years old. You're just support Emily. You're not built to lead ops. My father says it without even looking at me. We're sitting in the company's executive conference room, 12 leather chairs, one glass table, and a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooks the Potomac River. Every corner of this room smells like steel pine wood polish and old power. I'm halfway through a supply chain projection presentation when he cuts me off. His voice is steady, clipped, commanding, just like it was when he was a colonel, just like it's always been with me. My fingers pause on the tablet screen. The air goes still. I feel the eyes of every man at the table glance at me, then immediately down at their notes like they're embarrassed for me but won't intervene. My father, Everett Harlow, sits at the head of the table, his blazer open, fingers tented in front of him. He doesn't even acknowledge the silence that follows. He just pivots. "Now let's talk real risk management," he says, gesturing toward one of the younger VPs, Kyle, who I hired last year and trained from scratch. I lean back slightly, holding the breath I don't want to let out in front of them. Support. It echoes in my head louder than any insult. He didn't say I was wrong. He didn't say I made a mistake. He said I was just support a disposable tool, a glorified assistant. I've been working here for 11 years. I have 3 master's degrees, mechanical engineering, public logistics, and international procurement. I've managed billion-dollar contracts, written the exact risk matrix he's about to praise Kyle for quoting, but to him, I will always be the backup, the substitute. The second child after the first one died. The room moves on. The projector slides to a new chart. I sit quietly and take notes. No one looks at me again. They think I'll swallow it, like I always do. But today, something shifts. Because the man at the head of the table forgot one thing. 5 years ago, during a federal asset reallocation program, I took ownership of one of our company's tactical bases in Nevada. On paper, it was a shell facility, underused, overlooked, pushed into my hands because no one else wanted to handle its compliance renewal. But I saw the potential. And I filed the paperwork with my own attorney, bought it outright. Today, it's worth $7.8 million and handles nearly 22% of the company's live equipment staging and remote contractor training. And my father has no idea he no longer owns it. I glance down at my tablet. A single swipe would begin the extraction protocol. I could pull the base from our company's infrastructure portfolio before lunch. It would cut our quarterly strength by 1/3, and the acquisition deal he's secretly been negotiating, it hinges on that base being included. He thinks I'm sitting here licking my wounds. He has no idea I'm holding the detonator. The meeting ends 40 minutes later. I pack my notes. My father doesn't say a word to me as he walks out of the room with 2 of the junior execs trailing behind him. I stay in my seat for a moment, staring at the empty head chair. Then I gather my things, walk out into the hall, and step into the elevator alone. As I descend to the parking level, I tap open my private legal archive. The file opens smoothly. Clean. Quiet. Property owner Emily Renee Harlow. Asset ID B742N. Tactical Ops Base, Tonopah, Nevada. Acquired 2018. Ownership 100% private. Not leased, current lease to use agreement. Harlow Strategic Logistics expires Q4 2025. I scroll to the bottom. The trigger form sits there like a sleeping animal. Initiate asset severance. Terminate licensing agreement. 30-day notice. Revoke access to site administration panel. 3 taps. That's it. I don't press it yet. I close the screen, slide the phone into my coat pocket. Not because I'm scared, but because I want him to look me in the eyes when it happens. I walk to my car, mid-level matte gray, unassuming. It blends in with the others just like I do. And as I pull out of the garage, my face reflected in the rearview mirror, I don't see a daughter anymore. I see the woman who built the bones of this company while her father polished its teeth. I see the one who'll decide where the money goes when the smoke clears. And I finally know something I hadn't let myself believe before today. It's not that he doesn't think I can lead. It's that he's terrified that I already do. There's a kind of power in silence, in waiting, in knowing something the room doesn't. I used to think I had to earn my place at the table. Now I realize I own the damn floor beneath it. My father raised me like he was still running a battalion. From the moment I could hold a pencil, everything in my life was structured. Wake up at 600, make the bed with hospital corners. Breakfast in 7 minutes, no makeup before 16, and no crying ever. His name is Everett Harlow, retired U.S. Army colonel, Bronze Star recipient. Built like an oak door and twice as hard to open, he ran our home like a base commands, barked expectations posted, and discipline handed out without warning. My mother used to say he leads from the front. I always thought he led from a cold distance. There were 3 of us once. Everett, my mom, my older brother Mason, and me. Mason was everything Dad wanted in a son, broad-shouldered, charming, obedient. He played football, followed orders, enlisted straight out of high school. When Mason spoke, my father actually listened. He died in Kandahar when I was 22. After that, something inside my dad calcified. He didn't cry, didn't speak about it much. He just turned that grief into steel and pressed it onto me. I wasn't the son he lost, but I became the only one left to mold. He didn't say it, but I could feel it in every sideways glance, every tightened jaw, be good enough to replace him, or stay out of my way. So I got good, at everything, at math, science, precision, silence. I earned a mechanical engineering degree from Georgia Tech, then another in logistics. Went on to earn a master's in procurement and risk at Stanford. I didn't party. I didn't protest. I didn't dare disappoint. When I graduated, I didn't go to Boeing or Lockheed like my classmates. I walked straight into Harlow Strategic Logistics, my father's post-military empire. He founded the company with a few other veterans, providing support contracts and logistical services to military operations worldwide. Everything from gear shipment to base infrastructure, even temporary ops site deployment. It was big business. Quiet, regulated, boring, but big. I started in procurement, then vendor management, then compliance. I buried myself in policy binders, federal acquisition requirements, and facility safety codes. While my father chased high-profile contracts and gave handshake tours to senators, I made sure the machine actually worked. He never thanked me. At most, he'd say, "That's acceptable, or don't mess this up." Once, when I secured a high-level training license for a drone testing range in Arizona, a process that took 6 months of backdoor coordination and cross-agency approvals, he told the board. It got done. That was it. It got done. Not she did it. Not Emily pulled this off under pressure. Just done. But I stayed, not because I was desperate for his praise. I stayed because I was good at it, because I knew how this company operated better than anyone, including him. Then came 2018. The Department of Defense was divesting a handful of low-priority tactical training sites, outdated, underused, but still functional. Most were in remote locations, not flashy. My father passed on all of them, but I didn't. One base in particular, B742N in Tonopah, Nevada, stood out. Remote, yes, but it had untouched drone airspace clearance, excellent structural integrity, and access to an old fiber optic hub. The government was practically giving it away, and I knew why it wasn't sexy enough for the big players. Too much red tape. Too many renewal delays. I also knew something else. We had just landed a contract that required off-grid tactical simulation space, and no one in the office was paying attention to site acquisition because my father was busy courting an international arms firm for a merger that never happened. So I made a quiet move. I drafted an acquisition request, formed a single-member LLC under my own name, Harlow Supportive Assets, applied, got approved, paid out of my own savings plus a bridge loan I took through a private lender. And just like that, I owned the base. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was being secretive, but because no one asked. The company began using the facility under a lease-to-operate agreement I set up through legal. They signed it with barely a glance. I managed the permits, licensing, inspections, everything. It became one of our highest-yield assets in under 2 years, and no one realized it wasn't theirs. I would walk through the halls of headquarters, hear them praise the Nevada training site, and smile. Because for once, something I built wasn't going to be taken or erased. It was mine. But even then, I didn't feel ready to use it. Because some part of me, maybe the same part that used to fold socks into perfect rectangles, still wanted his approval. I told myself maybe next year he'll see it. Maybe when the numbers speak for themselves, he'll admit I've earned my place. But years passed, and nothing changed. He still cut me off in meetings, still assigned credit to others, still described me to investors as sharp with back-end systems, but not exactly field capable. And then, 3 weeks ago, I saw the pitch deck. He was preparing to sell 49% of the company to a European conglomerate. The valuation was high, almost $200 million, and listed clearly under core strategic assets was Site B742N. My base! He didn't even know he didn't own it. I sat in my office holding the printout pulse pounding like gunfire. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about strategy anymore. It was about boundaries. He didn't just dismiss me as support. He assumed my work, my foresight, belonged to him by default. And now, he was going to learn what it feels like to miscalculate the quiet one. 3 days after I discovered the pitch deck, my father called a company-wide strategy retreat. It was held at the Alexandria compound, our secure off-site training center that only the senior leadership had access to. Normally, I enjoyed these retreats. I got to interact directly with our ground logistics crews, field analysts, even international partners via secure conference line. But this time, I knew something was off before I even got out of the car. The parking lot was fuller than usual. A few unfamiliar license plates. When I entered the main hall, I saw why Everett had invited 2 executives from Alston Group, the European defense contractor he was trying to court. They were tall, polished, and disturbingly cheerful. Their suits cost more than my annual field budget. I sat near the middle of the U-shaped table scanning the packet in front of me. It was an agenda light on specifics heavy on buzzwords. Resilient strategy command presence, operational confidence. The usual corporate smoke. My name wasn't listed as a speaker, which was strange considering I had personally overseen the execution of 3 of the 5 listed core tactical initiatives. I said nothing. I never do at first. The meeting began with my father giving one of his signature opening remarks, stern, no slides, just words. "We're entering a new chapter," he said. "New partners, new vision, and we'll need leaders with spine and clarity." I expected him to at least nod in my direction. He didn't. Instead, he introduced Kyle Beering as our new director of tactical logistics. I blinked. Kyle. The same Kyle I mentored through his first contract review, the one who needed me to explain how licensing renewals work every quarter. The room applauded politely. I didn't. Instead, I slowly turned the page in my folder. My pulse didn't rise. Not yet. Not until my father turned back to the table and said with a faint smile, "Emily will remain in support services procurement compliance vendor negotiations. We need her there. She's our backbone. Backbone. Spine without a voice. Muscle without a mind." And the way he said it, like I should be grateful, was what finally made something inside me snap. After the meeting, I walked out onto the gravel path behind the main building. The sun was blinding. My shoes crunched against the stone as I moved toward the small satellite cafe we used for informal huddles. I needed 10 minutes, just 10 to breathe, to recalibrate. And that's when I heard them, voices behind the wooden partition. It was my father, and one of the Allstone reps, Dominic, I think. German smooth voice, subtle condescension. "Your daughter, she's very diligent," Dominic said. "Sharp," my father replied. "She gets things done, but she's not a fighter. She's not built for strategic leadership." I froze. He went on. "We lost our son in combat. I think a part of her's always been cautious because of that. She's good with spreadsheets numbers, keeps the machine running. But vision frontline decision-making, not her gift." I didn't move. I just stood there, one arm still holding the edge of the wooden beam, my breath catching in my throat like something too jagged to swallow. He didn't say it with anger, or even malice. He said it like it was a fact, like I was a functional appliance, not a human being, with her own pulse, her own ambition, her own spine. I turned and walked away before I could hear another word. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment with the city lights flickering like static outside the windows. The file sat open on my laptop again, the Nevada base my base. the one generating nearly 2.2 meters in annual operational surplus, the one housing the new AI combat sim units we had quietly launched in Q3, the one Everett had no legal claim to. I stared at the severance option. It glowed on the screen like a warning flare. Not yet, I told myself, but soon. Because I was starting to realize something I never let myself admit before my loyalty to this company had become a leash. And my father was the one holding it. I opened a second tab, searched for a corporate valuation consultant, one that specializes in standalone military-grade asset monetization. The numbers rolled in fast. If I pulled out Harlow Strategic's valuation would drop below the acquisition threshold Allstone required. Their entire merger pitch would collapse. One facility, one signature. That's all it would take. I clicked off my screen and sat in the dark for a long time, because this wasn't just about revenge, it was about equity. I had given 11 years of my life to this company, built its backbone, structured its tendons, and the man who created me, looked me in the face and said I was just support, that I wasn't built to lead. But I know what I built. And so does he, even if he's about to remember it the hard way. I don't cry in meetings. I don't cry in elevators. I've trained myself for that. But when I sit in my car parked in the lower-level garage beneath our headquarters, I let myself fall apart for exactly 4 minutes, not dramatic sobbing. Just a quiet, bitter release, tears sliding down without sound, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly the leather creaks. It's been 12 days since the retreat, 8 days since my Kyle was publicly announced as Director of Tactical Logistics. The press release went out to all internal channels. It called him visionary, dynamic, forward-thinking, words that have never once been used to describe me in any context, at least not out loud. He dropped by my office yesterday, awkward and almost apologetic. They wanted someone with a fresh face, he said. I'm not trying to step on toes. Everett made it sound like you were shifting out of front-facing work. I looked at him and said, Of course, you should enjoy it. And I meant it. It wasn't his fault. Not really. But it was my father's choice, his strategy. He wanted someone he could mold, someone young, eager, easy to redirect, someone who wouldn't question him, someone who wouldn't own part of the company. And me, I was inconvenient. Too smart to be silent, too silent to be seen. That same afternoon, I was pulled from Project Silo, an advanced modular-based design concept I had personally pitched, drafted, and developed from the ground up over the last year. It was reassigned to a 3-person task force, none of whom had been in the room when I sold it to the Pentagon during an off-schedule procurement window. No explanation. Just new direction. We need you focused elsewhere. My father sent the message through an assistant. I wasn't even worth the courtesy of direct dismissal. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, the city humming like a distant machine beneath me. I held a glass of bourbon in one hand, my phone in the other, scrolling through archived emails I had sent. Detailed briefs, projections, forecasts. Some of them had no replies. Others had simple notes. Thanks. We'll use this. No attribution, no discussion, just silence. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just been overlooked. I had been harvested. Every insight I gave, every quiet solution, every hours-long dive into federal compliance code they took, it wrapped it in a fresher voice and pinned someone else's name to the outcome. Because I never made noise, never demanded credit. I was raised not to. When Mason died, my father didn't grieve, he redirected. He poured every ounce of discipline, structure, and unprocessed guilt into shaping me into a replacement. But he never stopped resenting me for not being him. And deep down, I think I tried to earn my way into his image, quietly, respectfully, foolishly. But that's over now. That night, around 11:00 p.m., I opened my laptop and began sorting through the Nevada files. The ownership record still stood, undisputed, uncontested. I had run the site lean and clean, staffed with a loyal, vetted team. No internal disputes, no liens. Fully federal compliance certified through 2026. I called my lawyer. Her name is Cheryl Price. She's been with me since the day I made the purchase. She picked up on the second ring. Are we pulling the trigger? She asked. I hesitated, because part of me still hoped someone would notice I was missing, that my father would walk into my office, close the door, and say I was wrong, that he'd finally look past his shadow and see the daughter who's been building his empire from beneath his feet. But ghosts don't get apologies, and I had already vanished in their eyes. Yes, I said. Draft the full withdrawal. Sever the licensing agreement. Set the 30-day notification, but don't send it yet. I want to deliver it myself. At the acquisition meeting. Exactly. She paused. Are you ready for how hard this will hit them? I let the silence linger before I answered. Yes, I've been ready for years. I just didn't know it until now. We finalized the document over the next 3 hours. By the time I shut my laptop, the eastern sky was beginning to glow a soft blue. I stood at the window and watched the first hint of morning rise over the rooftops, and in that pale quiet, I let go of something heavy, the illusion that loyalty was the same as value, that if I just stayed dependable long enough, they'd finally see me. They won't, because they don't want to. But I see myself now, and I know exactly what I'm worth, not as support, as the foundation they forgot to check. I arrive at Tonopah before dawn. The desert is still asleep, blanketed in a bruised violet light that softens the jagged edges of the sand. The air smells like silence, cold metal, and wind-swept dust. The gates open automatically as my vehicle approaches. No security badge needed, no clearance code. This place responds to one name, one authority, one silent signature. Mine. It's surreal being back here. I haven't visited in person since the initial acquisition in 2018. Back then, it was little more than a gutted facility, ex-military concrete cracked pipes, outdated panels, and years of neglect. Everyone passed on it. Everett didn't even read the full decommission brief, but I saw it for what it could be, a fortress disguised as a footnote. Now it's humming. 7 full-time staff, on-site AI sim labs, modular drone response training zones, a digital perimeter grid with its own satellite backup system. We even have solar redundancy thanks to a grant I wrote under my own LLC. Every inch of this place runs like a secret heartbeat. I walk through the main hallway with Marisol, the base coordinator. She's former Air Force, sharp as a razor, and loyal in the way only those who've been overlooked too many times know how to be. All systems green, she says, handing me a fresh data slate. Cheryl called. Paperwork's signed and sealed. We're just waiting on your final okay. I nod, scanning the figures. This facility now generates close to $2.2 million annually in indirect revenue through equipment staging and subleased contractor training. And that's not counting the black budget programs quietly tagged through third-party procurement channels. Removing it from Harlow Strategic's operating portfolio won't just hurt, it will gut the company's valuation. And if I time it right, I can pull the foundation out just as the buyer steps onto the first floor. Everett has no idea, but he will soon. In the command room, I run a final double-check with Cheryl via secure satellite call. She walks me through the timeline. Withdrawal notice goes live at 10:00 a.m., Friday. Licensing rights to Harlow Strategic formally terminated at 10:01. Control of all access panels reporting terminals and secure files reverts to my LLC. And most importantly, the severance document will be hand-delivered by me in person during the acquisition meeting Everett thinks he's running. I close the slate and lean back. It feels strange. Empowering, yes. But also sad. This was never how I wanted it to go. For years, I thought I could earn my seat at his table through quiet competence, through loyalty, through work so seamless it would be impossible to ignore. But it wasn't impossible. It was easy. Easier than I ever imagined for them to skim past my name brush off my input, erase my fingerprints from the work I built. I allowed it. I made it easy. And now I have to be the one to make it stop. On the flight back to D.C., I sit by the window phone in airplane mode and practice what I'll say when the moment comes. I won't raise my voice. I won't ask for credit. I won't announce vengeance. I'll present facts, and then I'll walk away. Because that's the difference now. I don't need them to understand. I just need to make sure they can't forget. The morning of the acquisition meeting is gray and damp. Rain drizzles softly on the blacktop as I pull into the executive garage. I wear a charcoal suit, no jewelry, no makeup, clean, sharp, professional. The kind of uniform that says, "You can't move me." Inside the conference room is staged like a coronation. Bottled water, custom folders with embossed logos. Everett stands at the head of the table, all confidence and handshake smiles. Dominic and his partner from Allstone are seated across from him, flipping through papers. I take my seat near the end. Same position I've held for years, strategically placed, tactically ignored. Everett clears his throat. Let's begin. He launches into a 30-minute summary of Harlow's Strategic's growth innovation field readiness. He lists strategic assets. He names key facilities. He says, our crown jewel is our Nevada training base, which now handles nearly a quarter of our physical operations. Dominic smiles. Impressive. I wait until Everett clicks to the next slide. Then I speak. Excuse me. The room stills. Everett glances at me, half annoyed. Emily, we'll take questions at the end. This isn't a question, I say, standing. I reach into my case and pull out a simple folder. No logo. Just my initials and one stamped line, Asset Withdrawal, Final. I place it on the table, slide it forward. Effective immediately, the Nevada base is no longer a company asset. The lease to Harlow Strategic is terminated. Control has reverted to its rightful owner, me. Silence. Everett stares. Dominic leans forward, confused. I don't understand. It was acquired in 2018, I continue. Privately. Legal, clean. I've held ownership through a separate entity ever since. Harlow operated under a fixed-term lease. That lease is now closed. Everett's voice sharpens. This is a joke. No, it's oversight, I say. You signed the lease yourself. Page 17 of the 2019 infrastructure audit. He flips through his binder with shaking hands. Finds the page. Stops. I sit down. Calm. Still. You said I was just support, I say quietly. You built this house, Dad, but you never checked who owned the ground underneath. He says nothing. Dominic clears his throat. Mr. Harlow, this alters the valuation. Significantly. Everett doesn't respond. He can't. Because he knows it's real. He knows he missed it. He knows he underestimated me. And the best part, I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to scream sabotage or storm out. I just had to wait until the right moment to own what was already mine. The folder sits on the glass table like a silent grenade. No one touches it. Everett doesn't speak. Not right away. His face, usually a tight, controlled mask of military confidence, looks stunned. Not broken. Not angry. Just exposed. He flips through the withdrawal paperwork again, slower this time, as if by reading it carefully he can will it into fiction. But it's real. Every stamp, every clause, every signature. Mine. Across from him, the Allstone executives shift uncomfortably in their seats. They're corporate sharks, but they didn't come here for blood. They came for a clean acquisition of a $200 million logistics firm. One whose crown jewel, as Everett proudly called it minutes ago, now sits quietly outside his hands. Owned entirely by his daughter. His support. Dominic leans forward. Emily, you're saying the Nevada site is not part of the company's portfolio? Correct, I reply. It never was. But your name, your position? I separated personal ownership from corporate employment, I say. Legal firewall. The lease to Harlow Strategic expired this morning at 10:01 a.m. All operational control now flows through a private entity under my direction. I glance around the room. No one is writing anything down. Everyone is just watching. Everett finally speaks. His voice is low but clear. Why would you do this now? I look at him and see not my father, but the man who dismissed me at every table, who took my silence for compliance, who thought credit only belonged to the loudest voice in the room. Because you left me no other option, I say. He doesn't flinch. So I keep going. You replaced me with someone I trained. You stripped projects from my hands. You stood 10 feet away and told a foreign investor I wasn't a fighter. You said I wasn't built for leadership. My voice stays calm, measured. You never saw me, Dad. Not really, and maybe I let that happen. Maybe I kept my head down too long. But I never stopped building. I built under your nose, and when I realized you weren't going to make room for me, I made room for myself. He leans back slowly, his jaw tightening. The rest of the table stays frozen, as though any movement might tip the balance of power further. Dominic clears his throat again more cautiously this time. Without that base, the asset valuation drops by 34%. I finish for him. Which places the acquisition outside your profit target? No one responds. I pick up the folder, close it. So unless Allstone is willing to renegotiate based on a new valuation without the Nevada facility, this deal is effectively dead. Everett leans forward, hands clasped tightly together. You blindsided me. I nod. Yes, because giving you time to spin it would have made me the villain. And I'm not. He opens his mouth, closes it again. For a man who's always had something to say, this silence might be the loudest sound in the room. I push my chair back, smooth down my blazer. Gentlemen, I nod toward the Allstone reps. Thank you for your time. Then I turn to my father. And thank you for the training, Everett. He doesn't say goodbye. I don't wait for one. Outside, the air feels cleaner. Not freer, not yet, but like something has cracked open just enough for breath to pass through again. The clouds have started to break. The sky isn't bright, but it's not heavy anymore either. I walk to my car slowly, deliberately. Inside, I sit behind the wheel for a long time without starting the engine. I don't cry. I don't smile either. It's not victory I feel, not revenge. It's relief. Relief that I finally stopped waiting for him to hand me what I had already earned. Relief that I stopped trying to justify myself to a man who never intended to see me. Relief that I was willing to be patient for years without letting it soften my edge. My phone vibrates in my coat pocket. A message from Cheryl Deal collapsed. Everett canceled the remaining sessions. Words getting around. Congrats, E. I exhale. Another message comes in. This one from Marisol at the Nevada base staff aware of transition. Everything running smooth. Want me to prep the West Wing office for relocation? I smile. Finally, a room where I do belong. I pull onto the highway, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror. I don't look back. I'm not running. I'm not even leaving. I'm reclaiming. Because for once, I'm not someone's daughter hoping to be useful. I'm not a footnote in a man's war story. I'm not just support. I'm the one who held the map while he pointed at the wrong mountains. And now I'm building my own terrain with new borders, new rules, and a name that doesn't need approval to stand. The office they set up for me at Tonopah is smaller than I expected. A repurposed operations bay overlooking the lower tarmac. No glass walls, no polished mahogany. Just brushed metal, a sturdy desk, 2 chairs, and a clean line of sight across the desert. And somehow it's perfect, because here every decision that flows through this place leads back to me. Not my father, not his board, not a strategic director who hasn't spent a day in the field. Just me. No permissions, no middlemen, no battles for acknowledgement. Here I don't have to prove I'm capable. I just am. The staff has adjusted quickly to the transition. Most already suspected I was the true owner. They'd seen my name on infrastructure memos and vendor authorizations. But now it's official. My signature, my command, my future. Marisol checks in with me daily. She doesn't hover, just delivers updates like I'm her equal, which I am. One professional to another. No condescension, no corrections. We've started making plans to expand the base's satellite communications hub. There's a proposal for a woman-led civilian tactical training program. I'm reviewing contractors this week. It feels right, like a new chapter written in my own pen. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I get a package in the mail. No return address, no card, just a large manila envelope postmarked Alexandria, Virginia. Inside, a single photo. It's old, faded around the edges, folded once down the center. A picture of Mason, my brother, and me at the base's original dedication ceremony. I must have been 10. I'm wearing a sun hat too big for my head, standing beside him with my arms crossed and a scowl that could cut steel. He's smiling, Behind us, Everett stands in uniform, one hand on Mason's shoulder, the other behind his back. I stare at it for a long time. There's no note inside, no signature. But I know where it came from. And what it means. Everett hasn't spoken to me since the boardroom, not directly. He canceled the Allstone deal, issued a quiet press release blaming market volatility. Kyle is still listed as Director of Tactical Ops, but rumor has it the company's cutting 5% of its field contracts next quarter. I don't wish him failure. I don't want to see the company burn. But I'm no longer worried about keeping it standing either. He built it his way. Now I'm building mine. I walk the perimeter of the base most evenings just before sunset. There's a peace to it. The land is open and dry sky wide enough to swallow the noise of the world. I like the way the wind brushes against the steel buildings like it's trying to remind them they're still small. Sometimes I think about that meeting, about the moment Everett realized what I had done, about the split second between confusion and recognition when he looked at me and didn't just see me but saw what I was capable of. He may never say it. He may never call or write or ask for a second chance. And that's okay, because I didn't do it for his apology. I did it to close a chapter that was never mine to begin with, to stop waiting for a seat at a table where the rules were rigged from the start, to remind myself that being quiet isn't the same as being small, and being loyal doesn't mean being blind. I didn't win by shouting. I didn't sabotage or scheme or burn it all down. I won because I knew when to step out of the room and build my own. The day the new sign goes up, the crew asks me what name to use on the front gate. It's a small decision, but not to me. I think for a moment. Then I say, call it Base Wren. They raise eyebrows. Wren. It was my mother's maiden name, I say. She was the first one who taught me that being soft-spoken didn't mean powerless, and the first one who told me Mason wasn't the only one built for something big. They nod. The sign order is placed. 3 weeks later, it stands tall at the edge of the desert base, Wren Tactical Operations and Strategy Director, Emily Harlow. I don't cry when I see it. I just smile, because for the first time in a long time, I'm not running defending or reacting. I'm leading, and not in the shadow of a father who couldn't see past his loss, but in the light of everything I built while he wasn't watching. This is my legacy, not loud, not vengeful, just steady, and mine.